Hi, my name is Andrew Brown, and I'm also a social studies teacher. I teach currently World History 9, Avid 9, and IB History of Asia. And I've been at Sunset now for, this is my 11th year, and pretty much over those years taught 9th grade almost exclusively along with IB History. So it's a pleasure to be here and present to you all and hopefully answer any questions that you might have.
My name is Lynn Horahan. I am a freshman teacher as well for World History. This is my 6th year at Sunset. I also teach Avid 12 this year and IB Psychology. Welcome. Andrew Gunsel, you're next.
Hi, everyone. My name is Andrew Gunsel. This is my 8th year at Sunset High School. I am a world history teacher. I've taught recently sophomore level world history sequence, but really happy to be back teaching freshmen for world history this year and looking forward. I teach an elective called US Issues and really happy that you guys are here tonight, and like what was said before, hoping to answer your guys' questions and give you a nice welcome into the community. So thanks for being here.
Hi, I'm Dennis McLean, and I teach and have taught World History 9 for many years at Sunset. I started at Sunset in, I think, 2002. I also teach IB Economics SL, mostly juniors and seniors. And one of the things I love about teaching World History 9 and IB Econ SL is I get to see the kids when they're just out of middle school, like their first day in high school is with me. And then I get to see so many of them as juniors and seniors when they're so much more mature and grown up and really just transform people. And it's really fun to see that transformation.
All right, so that's a little bit of who we are. And we are excited to come and just introduce the program that we've got going on at Sunset for social studies. I realize there's a problem with the link that we're going to try to fix for you before the end of our time together. But we're also recording this, so you'll be able to access it later as well. So the first thing is that social studies is really a kind of choose your own adventure discipline at Sunset High School. There are some required courses like World History 9 and US History 10, but there's also a lot of room for you to kind of choose what you want as a student and what you want to engage and experience. So this is just a quick look at some of our possible pathways that you could take. We have a history of Asia pathway that has students really focus in on what's going on in Asia, both in a very historical sense and then on up into a more modern Asian sense. We've got a focus on US issues and diversity and justice, political activism. How do we get students engaged in being part of their own world? And then we've got more of a like social sciences bent with our psychology, anthropology, and econ courses. So we've got a nice variety of things for students to engage in. We've got really great students at Sunset, and they shared with us some of the reasons why they love being in social studies and what they love about social studies. And we wanted to just share a couple of these ideas with you, what is great about social studies. I also just want to say, if you've got any questions at any point, the chat is there for you to drop them in, and we've got 4 of us here ready to answer any questions you might have. So we'll go to Leah.
Hi, my name is Leah Gulick, and I am a sophomore who's in World History 10 right now. I really appreciate social studies classes, especially when we get the chance to look into areas of interest or topics that we're passionate about, and then apply that to what we're learning in our world history classes. I also really appreciate world history in particular because we've gotten several opportunities to go to seminars and discuss current events, and I've learned a lot from having that open discussion with my peers and teachers, so I really appreciate that opportunity. Thanks, World History.
I got one message that there was no audio. Did anyone else have any audio issues? No? Okay. Great. We're gonna have just another quick shout out from one of our students. This is Apruva.
Hi, my name is Apurva Rao. My pronouns are she, her, and I'm a junior here at Sunset. So far, I've taken both world history courses and IB History SL1. I'm really passionate about education, and social studies is a big part of why. Being able to learn about the past, but through many different viewpoints, is what social studies should be about. It offers a chance for representation and diversity within our curriculum. Thank you.
So it's always better to hear from them rather than just our teachers. So social studies, right now we've got, there are 3 required years of social studies at Sunset High School, but we encourage all students to take 4 years. 4 in the core is really great. All students will start off taking the freshman social studies course, and that is a world history course. And I'd like to turn it over to our 9th grade teachers to talk a little bit more about what that course is all about.
So, hi, my name is Mr. Brown, Andrew Brown again. If you don't, I'll take a stab at this. So over the course of the last couple of years, or the years that I've taught this course at Sunset, we've really approached it more kind of trying to build a narrative. So this year's focus has been looking at worldview. How do worldviews impact societies? How are worldviews created? And how do those sort of manifest themselves in the modern era? So we try to, we are a world history course. A lot of our focus has been more on the ancient world, but trying to build that foundation in order to understand sort of contemporary issues, contemporary manifestations of those nations today. We've spent a lot of time also looking at worldview, but in addition, sub kind of topics as well, such as power and belief. How does power systems develop? How do belief systems develop? How does belief develop into a power? Our focus over the years has been looking at teaching geographical skills as a kind of a basic foundation for students' understanding, investigating the Chinese empires and dynasties, and kind of leading up to sort of modern day through current events, looking at the rise of monotheism and how does that sort of start to shape the West in comparison to the East. And then other case studies that have included looking at North African trade routes and the influence of Islam, as well as Islamic Spain, and that interesting kind of, what I'm trying to say here, the kind of the contact between Al-Andalus and Islamic Spain with Catholic Spain and the way in which that played out. Mr. Gunsel, Ms. Horahan, McLean, want to add anything to that brief?
I would just say impacts. I was gonna say, Mrs. Horahan here. I would say impacts. What is impacting our world? What is impacting our societies? Looking at, again, different case studies throughout the year, anything from modern climate change to, the humanitarian crises around the world. So trying to integrate also with our 9th grade English language arts teachers. And so historically we have met as a team with another English teacher. So your student would see myself and then go to their English teacher. And that pairing has been really beneficial in terms of content, but also for social and emotional needs of students to making sure that they are having those met as well. Any other thoughts?
I would just say that one of the things we try to do as a department is make sure that students have a set of skills to move forward with. And that's a particular focus of 9th grade, because that you're sort of setting the foundations of their high school skills. But at the same time, we all do things a little bit differently. So it's not like there's one, binder that we're all working out of and we all just go to the next page on the next day. For instance, Mr. Gunsel and I are working on an art history project. we're finishing up our China unit. We're looking at the Kunming scroll from Song Dynasty, whereas other classes are maybe a little bit ahead of us, working on monotheism. So we all do things at a slightly different pace. So we're not all working in lockstep, but at the same time, the students all leave 9th grade with a similar set of skills to move on to 10th and their future courses.
And just to add on to that, one of the things that the department, especially this grade level team, really prides itself on is sort of diversity of delivery. There's a variety of ways that some of this content and instructional material is really going to be received by the students. Everything from simulations to role play, some traditional lectures, some reading, a lot of interactive and group work too. So it really kind of keeps everybody on their toes for something new and something fun, just kind of new avenues to arrive at the same content that used to be just deliverable through a more traditional way. So.
Yeah, and then this 9th grade class also has the honors option embedded into it. So honors is something that all students have the chance to do. They're not required to do it. And it's kind of like an above and beyond deep dive into the topics that are being looked at. You have to take on a little bit more work on your own, but it's really rewarding. Students have that option in both the 9th and the 10th grade year in social studies to push themselves and challenge themselves through honors. Signups usually happen in early fall once you've like tried out the class a little bit and you've decided like, is this something I'm enjoying? Do I want to push myself a little bit further? And then teachers kind of roll out with signups that way. So from our world history course, we move into a sophomore year American history class. And this is really focused on talking about the story of America, picking up from where students left off in the 8th grade and looking at America up to the civil rights era, World War II. Students look at issues about settlements, how we expanded as a nation, how we interacted with indigenous people, the role of slavery and immigration into creating us as a nation, as well as issues about like industrialization and government. How does the Constitution work? How does our branches of government work? How do our Supreme Court's justices make decisions, and what is that impact on people? And again, there's the honors option for this class as well. From those two required courses, junior year kind of opens up the world for students. There's 3 options that students can have. The first is an IB History of Asia course, the first year. And Mr. Brown is the teacher of that. I'm going to turn it over to you to give a little shout out about what History of Asia is like.
So this is kind of an exciting change we made. For the last couple of years, the IB history class at Sunset was the IB History of the Americas, which is a fantastic course looking at the history of the Western Hemisphere. But looking at refreshing things and bringing in new perspectives, we decided to switch the focus this year to bring on the IB History of Asia, think about our student populations a little bit more. And so this course is really focused on the first year so far, has been looking at the foundations of Chinese society, Chinese history, building up to looking at the foundations again for China's role in the 20th century, the rise of Mao, and based upon sort of past cultural practices. We're also looking at the history of Japan, looking at in particular the Tokugawa era of sort of seclusion, and then how that set them up and influenced, and also the results of the Meiji Restoration that took place in 1868, and how again those Japanese culture and history also sets itself up for its sort of colonial experience in the 20th century. And then we'll finish that course this year with looking at the history of Vietnam, especially its relationship and influence from China, but also its own independent culture and history as well. And again, that first year is really setting students up to launch into the 20th century topics, which Ms. Thorne will talk about a little bit further.
Thank you. Our other option is the IB History SL course. This is a year-long standalone experience where students focus on what's happening in the 20th century. They look at issues of rights and protests, so they can compare case studies from the US civil rights experience to the South African civil rights experience, as well as looking at issues of evolutions of democracy. They look at how is America evolving as a democracy through Reconstruction. How is Germany evolving as a democracy during the Weimar years in the 1930s? And how is South Africa evolving as a democracy during its push out of apartheid and into the more modern age? And then our last option that students can choose to take during their junior year is IB Global Politics. And this is another new course. We're running it for the first time this year, and students seem to really enjoy it and engage with it. This class asks kids to think about modern issues in a very global context. So talking about what's happening with power, who has power, who's making decisions, how do we deal with things like human rights, individual sovereignty of different nations, how do people get along with each other? And the really exciting part about this class is that all students engage in a large engagement project where they pick a topic that they're personally interested in, and they try to engage with it on a very local level. So this might look like having interviews with city council people. This might be trying to agitate to get a law passed or participating in a protest. Whatever students are interested in doing, they're able to really find their excitement and enjoyment there. And then senior year, students have two options that they're able to adventure into. The first is a senior seminar course. This is another year-long course that has students thinking about ethnic studies, human rights, and activism. And it culminates in a very large public action project where students are able to pick as a class a topic that they're really passionate and interested in. And then they try to create change. So past topics have been things like homeless shelters in Beaverton. What do we do about the drug and alcohol policy at Beaverton School District? Things like litter campaigns. So it's very much a student-generated project where they're able to put the skills that they've gathered from freshman year on up to senior year into practice. And the other option for senior year is to take that second half of the IB History of Asia's course that Mr. Brown was talking about earlier. While it's the second half of a course, students aren't required to take History of Asia Part 1 to engage in it. And this class really looks at what's going on in the world in the 20th century, picking up from World War I, where they left off junior year, and going on up into the more modern world, looking at Mao's China, what's going on with Vietnam, the Vietnam War, Cambodia, Korea, things like that. In addition to the core classes, we also have a variety of electives that students are able to engage in. The first is a class that's open to freshmen through seniors, and this is a class called Intro to Law, where students are able to learn about the legal system, engage in some mock trials. Then we have Intro to Psych. Ms. Horahan, do you want to talk a little bit about what Intro to Psych looks like and how it connects to IB Psych?
Yeah, so we offer Intro to Psych, which actually Mr. Gunsel is just recently taught. It allows us to look at the brain. It allows us to dive into deeper into psychological disorders. This is a great building step and a foundational piece to really get into IB psychology, which is a standalone standard level, so 1 year. We do a sheep's brain dissection to really show the emphasis of how important taking care of our brain is. Everything from being away from your cell phone to how is technology impacting our sleep patterns to how do drug and alcohol problems relate to behaviors. And so this is a great stepping stone to show a passion or just even an interest, whether you take this and then move into another IB course of psychology or econ or anthropology. So how does the brain work? How do I function as a human being? And how do my behaviors impact others? Andrew Gunsel, do you want to add in?
Yeah, no, I think that was really well said. A lot of what we're trying to do now is bridge some of the content so there's a smooth transition to extend that learning into IB psychology. Because while they do marry a lot of the concepts that are really upfront, IB Psych really asks for some more interesting work, more formal work as well, for people who are interested in entering into a career or studying this at the college level. So it's really cool, and it's a fun class. It's very fun. The sheep brain dissection is definitely a big hit. So definitely encourage that.
Mr. Gensel, well, we've got you on. Would you like to talk about U.S. issues? This is a class that I didn't make it onto the presentation, but it's also open to students to take as an
Yeah,
LP.
absolutely. So I teach an elective that's a little bit new to our school. We're about 3 years into its offering, but it's a class about contemporary political issues in the U.S. context. We do it for a semester course. It's a social science credit or elective credit. And for a semester, we go over some of the foundation and fundamental pieces to political discourse. We'll talk about terminology, everything from moderate, conservative, progressive, left, right, things like that. We go over topics like political socialization. How does one sort of get acquainted with where they sit or where they're situated politically? We talk about political psychology. What are some processes that impact or affect people's perception of political events? And then the latter half, we dive into actual case studies, some real issues. And in the past, we've discussed everything from abortion to gun rights, to justice issues and speech issues, really keeping an eye on what's happening sort of in the here and now to keep it relevant. So that's something that I just have a great passion for teaching about. It's great. So if you have any questions about that moving forward, definitely ask me, and I would love to talk to you guys about it. So
Thank you, Mr. Gensel. We also have a class called Diversity and Justice. This is also another one that's newer to our school. We're running the first one this year, and it asks students to think about issues of identity, who am I, who has power, and how different systems work together to either uplift people or create opportunities for oppression. And then that kind of launches us into our IB electives. Our first one we've talked about a little bit already. This is global politics. All students are able to take it in the 11th or 12th grade year. We've got IB psychology. Ms. Horahan, you want to talk a little bit more about that?
Sure. Andrew Gunsel did a great job of kind of giving us some brevity there. Definitely focusing a little bit deeper. We actually look at cases. And so studying cases about the human brain, how do people interact? So how to be a decent human being. We do a whole unit on criminology. We move into social influence. So how does conformity happen? How are some people fighting the mask currently going on in Oregon and around the world? And how some cultures and belief systems, right, really encourage that collective mask wearing. We move into PTSD. We also look at a unit regarding human relationships. So what does it mean to have a great relationship with someone? How does that mean that we support people with mental health issues? And so we really dive deep in content that I think is really relevant, and students get really passionate about some of the topics that we get to do. We're just right now in social influence. So why do we drive on the right side of the road, right? Why do we hope that people drive on the right side of the road and come to a stop sign and stop? And so it really allows students to see some connectedness to what they're doing. We also talk about relationships between parents and students, and what does that look like with culture and influences like the media. And so we look at, like I said, a bunch of cases and try to apply those to our lives. It's a great class. I've been teaching it for 5 years now. And we really liked the opportunity to explain some of the why behaviors. So when mom and dad say, why are you doing this? I don't have all the answers, but we try to solve some.
Thank you. Next up, we've got IB Econ. We'll turn this over to Mr. McLean.
So I sometimes think back to my own experience in high school economics in California, where I went to school. It was a required course, and it was really at a very basic level. And honestly, I left that course not really feeling like I learned much of anything about how the economy works. Took some college courses in economics, kind of, at a suggestion of some friends, and found it's a really powerful analytical tool and really helps you understand what's going on in the world. So that's really the approach that I take with IB Econ, is that this is a tool with which you can help yourself understand the world. And I think students have found in the past that it really is useful when they take their economic analysis tools over to their history classes. Things make more sense. When you're looking at current events, I think everybody's pretty much aware of the fact that with the world events with Ukraine and Russia right now, economics and international trade is absolutely central to what's going on right now. So we covered it at a couple different levels. First of all, it's divided into micro, macro, international trade, and development. But at the same time, we also look at it from the really sort of almost philosophical level of like, how do you know what someone else's self-interest is? And what are the limits of our knowledge about other people's desires? And how do we make estimates or try to assess what other people want? And then how do we predict people's actions? So there's that end of it. And then also sort of the more technical end of like, okay, so if inflation is rising, what is the Federal Reserve going to do? Are they going to buy bonds? Are they going to raise interest rates? What are they going to do here? So I think it's a really interesting course. It's a fairly fast-paced course because it's a lot to pack into a year. But I've found that for a lot of students, this is the social studies course that really helps them get to the next level in terms of really thinking in a more complex way about how the world works, rather than seeing sort of surface phenomenon and assuming that you know the whole story. I think they really get this idea of you got to look behind the curtain and see what are people's motivations, why are they choosing what they're choosing, and what are the underpinnings of these events that we're looking at.
And then our last IB elective that is open to students in 11th and 12th grade is anthropology. And this is having students really think about what makes different cultures unique, how do they interact with one another, and what things are similar, what ideas cross societies and cultures and bring everyone together. What we're going to do now is we're going to open some breakout rooms. So if you've got any questions, you can go into a breakout room. We're going to have one for IB electives. So if you've got a question about one of these IB elective opportunities, you can go ahead and go into that breakout room. We'll have another one for non-IB electives. So if you've got a question about US issues or intro to psych, you can head over to that breakout room. And then the main room, you can stay in here if you've got questions about the core classes. And while you're in those breakout rooms, I'm also going to figure out if we can get this slide to work for everyone, if we can fix that link problem. So I'll go ahead and open the breakout rooms now. And if you have a problem trying to navigate to one of those breakout rooms, go ahead and let me know and we can get you where you need to be or want to be. So if you're still in this room, you can just let me know if you've got any questions about the presentation so far. or if you want to help navigating to one of those rooms about IB electives or non-IB electives, just go ahead and let me know. I'm going to keep working on figuring out what's going on with that link to the presentation. The difference between IB and non-IB is that IB classes students have the ability to take a test through the International Baccalaureate System in May after they've completed all of the course requirements. And if students score at a certain level on that test, they're able to get college credit for their work during the class. So in Oregon, a lot of our state schools require students to get a score of a 4 out of a 7 to receive college credit. Other schools, other states require you to get about a 5 or a 6 or a 7 to get the college credit. And it's just a way for students to kind of really push themselves in a global, rigorous program. It's somewhat similar to AP, if you're familiar with that. The big difference is that IB is more of an international idea, whereas AP is kind of unique to America. You don't need to apply to be in an IB elective. You just need to be a junior or senior in high school. It's not a special program. You could, if you wanted to push yourself, take the IB diploma, which is a full set of IB courses. And our diploma coordinator, Michelle Oceanstein, is a little bit more well-versed on explaining all the ins and outs of that. And I believe she has her own presentation that you can check out. I will pull back up that chart of all the courses. I see that as a question up here. Here is that overall kind of flow chart one more time. You can see we start with this grade 9, all students take the basic US history course. And then we get to grade 10, all students have to take US history. We get into our options here with 11th grade, IB history SL, IB history of Asia, HL1, and then global politics. And then senior year, there's no required course. It's really a what you're interested in. And that's where students can take IB politics. Again, if they're interested in it, history of Asia, the second year, IB econ, anthropology, psych, intro to psych. The choices are pretty broad once you get up to 11th grade in terms of what's open to you. Let's see. I'm going to drop another link in the chat and hopefully this one will work for you. I don't know why this isn't sharing. I apologize for that. If we can't figure it out this way, I believe we'll figure out a way to put it on later and get it out to you. Ninth grade electives are really limited to intro to law. Ninth grade year, there's a lot that students are trying to get. It's very jam-packed, so it's harder to have space in your schedule for electives. So right now, we really only have the intro to law course open to them. 10th grade, things start to open up. You have intro to law, intro to psych, and US issues. And then 11th grade, everything is there for you to engage in. The difference in workload for the IB track, it really depends on what the student is putting into it and what they want to get out of it. All students are encouraged to take IB. All 11th grade students will take a IB course, either history, SL, history of Asia, or global politics. What really differentiates it is that you need to prepare yourself for a test if you are going to engage in that testing. And there's a little bit more work on the part of the student to get to that level. The difference between an SL course and an HL course is how much the student is going to have to study for. So for example, IB History SL, students only need to take for a year. And when they get to May and they sit for their exams, they're sitting for a slightly smaller test than the students who take IB History HL. IB History HL has a lot of the same comparative historical ideas as IB History SL, but it also adds in that extra regional focus where we choose to look at Asia in depth, and that kind of informs us going forward. Another key difference between SL and HL is the amount of college credit students are able to get. SL courses you usually get a little bit less. I believe it's like 8 to 10 credit hours, depending on the institution. And HL courses, you can get up 8 to 15, depending on the institution you're going to. Part of why we have all of our 11th grade students taking an IB history course or IB global politics course is that we really want students to feel successful in achieving IB. A lot of times people see that IB signal and they're like, oh, this isn't for me, this is going to be really hard. And what we've worked really hard on is making sure all students are able to feel successful in taking this IB course their junior year, which then might push them to take another IB course in maybe not even social studies. Maybe this is going to push them to take an IB art class or an IB math or lit class. So it's all about having students feel that level of success and that win. There's no like required number of IB history courses you need to take if you're just an average student. Everyone will take one IB course just because that's the only offering we have at the 11th grade year in social studies. But you're not like required to take X number to graduate. If you're an IB diploma student, there is a certain number of courses you would need to take. But that's a special program that you would apply to at the end of your sophomore year. There is a maximum number of IB courses based just on your schedule and what you need to take to graduate. If you aren't an IB diploma student, you're probably going to end up taking fewer IB courses than if you are a full diploma candidate, but we don't really limit people other than you need to be a junior or a senior, and you should really want to take the course. It shouldn't be something you're just doing to take. And we have IB courses, not just in social studies, there are math, world language courses, art courses, English, sciences. So there's a lot of opportunities for students to find success at the IB level with what they're really passionate about. We are going to be winding down here soonish, so you do have time to pop over to the next Zooms. So if you do have any questions you want to get out there before we conclude, now is a good chance to do it. And a reminder that this session has been recorded. So if you missed part of it, you will have access to the recording. And if this link hasn't worked, we'll try to attach that to the recording so you can figure that out as well. Mr. Davitt, do you know about the counselor Zoom session? Is someone manning that now, or is there a specific time when that happens?
Good question. Let me double check.
Okay.
Yeah, it looks to be there should be someone running that right now.
Okay. I think there's a little bit of an issue. And we got a parent saying that there's a problem trying to get in.
Oh, with the counselor session?
Yeah.
Oh, no.
We will wrap up our social studies Zoom in just a couple minutes. So if you do have any last questions, go ahead and let us know. All right. I think it's time to head to your next Zoom about 6:15. I think the next one's going to start here at 6:30. So if you would like to, you can go ahead and sign off and pop on over to our next course. Once again, this is going to be, or this has been recorded. It will be uploaded to YouTube, so you're able to access it once again that way, and we will hook the link to our slideshow to that as well. Thank you all for coming and participating with us, and we're looking forward to seeing your students next year at Sunset.
Thank you, social studies. It was great.
Thank you. Let's see if I can't pull to remember how to get to breakout rooms again. I've forgotten how to do this. Let's see if there's anyone in the breakout rooms. See, a bunch of people in IB electives. So I'm going to pop over there Mr. Gunsel, if you just want to hang out here as the main person for just a second.
Sure.
Thank you.